her strategy and her approach for the exam. After that, we can ask our doubts and questions. Okay.
Okay. Hello, everyone. First of all, have a very great evening. As she told, first of all, I'll just talk about my strategy in general and my optional strategy in detail. One second. I think again my video is not visible.
Yes.
Yes, one second. Okay, I think it's fine now. So I'll talk about my strategy in general and optional strategy in particular. And after that, you can ask whatever doubts that you may be having, and I'll be happy to answer. So I think there is some issue with my video. Like after some time, it's going off. I'll just talk and we'll see how uh, this can be done. So this was my second attempt, and in my first attempt, I couldn't clear mains. Sorry, couldn't clear prelims, and it was in 2021. And this time, I gave my second attempt, and for both the attempts, I chose English literature as my optional. I'll talk a little bit about my background too. I am a postgraduate in English literature. I did my graduation in BA English Honours from Government College for Women, Validakad, Kerala, and also my post-graduation from Pondicherry University, Puducherry. And that's my background. So while choosing an optional, as I had the subject that I studied for 5 years, I hello,
Yes, ma'am, you are
is there any
audible.
issue?
No, no.
No, no,
Okay,
you're
fine,
audible.
fine. So, all right, all right. So as I had my subject as part of the options, I chose that. For that, I first took the syllabus, and I understood that it is bulky, yes, but the questions are, or the syllabus is well defined, like it has a flow. It starts from the age of Renaissance, that is the age of Shakespeare and all, and it almost ends with the age of modernity. And it has some bits and pieces of Indian writing in English too. So I could understand that there is a flow to the whole syllabus, and also familiar to me because I dealt with most of them during my college days. And then to know what kind of questions were asked from these questions, I went through previous year questions, and the questions were actually not so difficult, I'll say, but from the level of an honors student, maybe like something between BA and MA. And this was how I chose my optional. And during my first attempt for prelims, as everybody, I read the standard books, that is Polity for Lakshmikant, Spectrum for Modern Indian History. I read Shankar Ganesh for economics and did some questions by Vivek Singh later. And then for environment, there is a book called Shankar IAS, or people these days are also referring PM of IAS. And I think for ancient and modern history, I relied on my class notes along with Tamil Nadu NCRT. It has a few errors here and there, but it helped me a bit. So these were my basic resources, and I gave my first attempt. And during my first attempt, I used to devote some time for reading newspapers, and I had to attend classes. I took the help of a coaching center for prelims preparation, that is for GS preparation. So I had to spend 3 to 4 hours every day in the morning for attending those classes. I used to spend the rest of that day, again 2 to 3 hours, to repeat the same portions that were taught in the class so that I'll be able to retain them better. And then every day I used to spend again 2 to 3 hours for my optional. And I'll talk about how I dealt with that when I talk about my optional strategy in detail. And then I also, when time and my mood permitted, I also spend 2 hours a week, sorry, 2 hours a day for current affairs. This was how I planned my first year preparation. And I couldn't write much answers then. I had a teacher who helped me with some reviews when it comes to English literature, but I was not someone who was very regular with answer writing. So after when after my like just before my first prelims, actually I was not that prepared with answer writing. I thought I gave my prelims well, but I couldn't clear that attempt. And therefore, between my first prelims failure and my next prelims, what I did was I spent considerable time for mains, especially for GS papers to develop basic content and basic answer writing skills when it comes to GS papers. And when it comes to optional, I first of all I tried to complete most of the works, and also with an orientation of previous year questions, I also tried to write some answers. But again, my answer writing was not full fledged, but I tried writing answers for maybe half of the works, if I'm correct. But then again, during that point of time, my answers were very long, very lengthy, because I haven't kept a timer and written those answers. I just wrote those answers. So both my GN's answers and my optional answers were very lengthy during that point of time. And then came my second attempt. The prelims was actually manageable this time because one, as I could cover most of the primary text during my first attempt, I could do a trick this time. That is, first of all, I started the week by doing test. It would like sometimes I tried sectional test and sometimes I tried comprehensive test. Then I used to spend some time for analyzing those tests. And based on that analysis, I started studying. Like I grouped topics like the topics that are important for UPSC, the topics that I am thorough with, the topics that are not so important for UPSC. And first of all, I gave foremost priority to topics that are important for UPSC and topics that I am not very well versed with. Then, second priority was given to topics that are uh, important for UPSC that I am thorough with. Therefore, I used to study that later. I used to only revise those portions. And that's how I prioritized. So, doing tests in the beginning of a week, analyzing them, and then studying accordingly helped me a bit because I could understand the focus areas and I could also understand my weak areas. Another benefit that it gave me was my retention power because after doing a test, if I'm seeing that portion again, I'll be able to understand how questions can be generated from that topic. And this helped me to think from the point of view of a question maker and think about the possibility of generating questions from a portion, and also to think about the way how parallel portions like that will be important when it comes to UPSC exam. So likewise, I did my prelims, and again, one major difference between my first prelims and second prelims, I would say, will be my confidence. During my first prelims preparation, I was very hesitant to give some tests, mainly because I used to score less. And I used to be very worried about my scores also because I used to lose hope when I got very low marks. So I was hesitant to take many tests. But during my second attempt, I made sure that no matter how my scores went, I will take not as many, like I'll take more tests. And this mentality to test myself and to test myself, even though I haven't studied everything, helped me a lot because as we know, for UPSC prelims, we cannot prepare everything. We will not be ready with everything. So I try to solve those questions using whatever little knowledge I have and also using some logics and some elimination techniques. And that helped me to work on my logic and elimination technique and also to develop confidence. So that was the major difference I think I made between my first prelims and second prelims. It went fine, and then I actually faced one of the biggest uncertainties in my preparation journey, that is mains preparation. With GS papers, actually, I had comparatively better guidance available. So for GS papers, what I did was I took detailed syllabus of Drishti IAS. For each and every subject, they had a detailed syllabus. And based on previous year questions, I used to prioritize them based on some themes. For instance, when it comes to paper one, we can see that in history, certain portions like Chola Empire or travelers. These such questions were asked repeatedly, or temple architecture. All these were very important. Indus Valley civilization was also a source of questions. And when it comes to environment and ecology, most probably there'll be a question on corals or mangroves or energy was a very important topic. So a previous year question analysis and prioritizing the topics based on UPSC previous year questions helped me to prioritize my study areas. And another thing, like I used to prepare, I made timetable for a week. We used to have weekend test for mains. So what I did was, in the beginning of a week, I'll take that subject. I'll prioritize the themes based on previous year questions, and I'll take a few toppers copies just to see how they managed or they tackled that paper. And something else that I did was I used to write answers every day. And sometimes I'll take, especially for static portions, I used to take topics from questions from topper's answer copy. And then I tried answering those questions myself within a short span of time or within the stipulated time. And that helped me to compare my answers with topper's answers and to see what is better in my answers or what went wrong with my answers and how can I improve that. That helped me a bit. And again, the one thing that I will request everyone to do when it comes to GS paper or let it be optional paper is to practice answer writing. Then again, with my GS papers in general, what I did was I tried to bring in some value addition to introduction and conclusion also. Because usually we know it has most of the people will write UPSC answers with an intro and a conclusion, and we'll write them for just the sake of it. But what I try to do was I try to bring in some value to it so that I may fetch at least half a mark over there, and that will cumulatively mean a lot. For instance, if there is a question on capital expenditure, before writing about capital expenditure, I started with this in this union budget, this amount was allocated for capital expenditure by the government, and then I went into the question. And also, when it comes to that close conclusion, also I mentioned something like national infrastructure fund or something like that. So I used to add some value to my intro and conclusion. So this is my general strategy when it comes to GS paper. Then talking about English optional paper. First of all, as I mentioned earlier, I took the syllabus and I took 10 years of previous year questions. And for each and every text, I used to spend almost 1 week for an author. I'm not saying about a text, but for an author, I used to spend around 1 week. So what I used to do was I collected all for span of 10 years or 12 years, I collected all the previous year questions asked by UPSC. There I could see that a few themes are getting repeated. For instance, if we take King Lear, we can see the character of Cordelia, the significance of that love test, the importance of storm scene, or the character of Fool. Such kind of questions were asked repeatedly. So I just made a note of them, and then I spent that whole week for reading the primary text, and also while reading, I try to highlight some quotes or some instances that I thought will be of use to me. And then also I took each and every topic and prepared small notes using lit charts, spark notes, or any other useful websites that's available online. And the notes were actually crisp. They had a length of maybe 1.5 or 2 pages at most. And I tried to write the quotes that I thought are relevant on the side of that note. And therefore, I dealt with all the papers in paper 1 and paper 2. And I'll just say two important things about paper 1 and paper 2. As you may see that these years, paper 2 is comparatively less scoring. I'll not say it is less scoring, but the cost benefit ratio is more for paper 1 when compared to paper 2. So therefore, I'll request all of you to not to avoid paper 1 basically, or not to avoid paper 1 at the paper 1, because it has more potential to fetch you marks. But again, don't avoid paper 2 also. It's just that the output that we may get out of paper 2 will be lesser compared to the output that we may get out of paper 1. But that's the only thing is, don't avoid paper 1, or never leave it as such. And second thing, I would request each and every one is to read all the primary text if possible. If not, at least all the poems and a detailed summary of all the novels. I'm saying, please read all the poems, especially poems of paper 2. Read them repeatedly, because we'll get annotation questions from that. And now I'll talk about the most difficult stage, or the most uncertain stage for me, that was answer writing. As most of you may know, we don't have very good coaching centers or test series or answer keys or even a topper's answer copy as a model. So from the marks of a few of the other toppers like Anjali S, Hamna Mariam, Diksha Jain, I could understand that English literature is a scoring option. It's not like it's not scoring, but the awareness about how to write an answer so that we can fetch that much marks, 280 marks or something, was very rare. There was no such model answer copy or any strategy for English literature that I was aware of. So, what I did was, first of all, I consulted a few of my professors, but that wasn't of much help, because the answer writing style that is demanded by UPSC is a little bit difficult from our university style. Because in university style, we actually write in order to fill that space within that time. But when it comes to UPSC, we should fill that space. Even filling that space is not very necessary, but whatever we are filling, we should fill it with original ideas and arguments. And that was the biggest challenge of it. Like, we cannot just bluff. We should write very good points, especially as this is an optional. And again, I was someone who found it very difficult to find a good structure. Like during my first answers, I used to write an elaborate intro. And in that intro, I used to mention about the writer first. But then many people actually advised me not to write a lot about the writer in my intro. That's not very necessary, because the people who are reading it themselves will be knowing it. So the intro, I think what that is important is to, it must hit the question in its head. It must address the question. And how can we do that? One, we can start with a quote that will justify the answer. As Diksha ma'am in one of her videos said, when somebody is asking about the psychological analysis of Satan, we can say, like that famous quote that I myself am hell. I cannot tell what, I'm not sure about the exact quote, but I cannot distinguish between heaven and hell, because myself am hell. So such quotes will let the examiner know that you know what is being asked. So we can start with the quote if possible, or for some answers we can start with the quote. And we can also start by addressing how important that work is when we consider it in the lens of that age. For instance, if a question is asked about post-colonialism in Tempest, mentioning that Tempest is a work that came out of Renaissance age and its colonial exploits. And it was an age where people went to distant places and they started writing about those places. And it was also an age of scientific innovations that people of Europe had a lot of new equipment to go out and to experiment and also to imprison people in those exotic lands. So I tried to bring in the essence or the context of that work in that introduction. Then, when it comes to the body, I actually tried a GS like method. By GS like method, I'm not saying it's like I'm writing point 1, 2, 3, 4. I wrote my answers in paragraphs. And as I mentioned in my a note to my answers, I avoided underlining them later because Hamna Mariam, a topper, she actually advised me not to underline it because anything and everything can be important as far as literature is considered. So it's better not to underline except for underlining the works of text. And you will enclose the name of poems within double inverted comma. So therefore, what I did was for each and every question, I'll give an intro, which may be a quote or something that will talk about the importance of that work or how that work reflected that age or how that work is positioned in that age. And then I used to bring in my first argument and try to support it with some quote or example or instance. And I didn't mention, for example, like that, but I just wrote about it. And then again, so I used to place 4 to 5 arguments per question if time and my memory permitted it, and then conclude it again, harking back to my intro or by concluding those arguments. But again, I tried to bring in something novel. Like my summary or my conclusion was not like a summary of all the arguments that I presented. I tried to bring in some new idea. I'm not saying a new argument, but a new idea or something that I could connect with the introduction. So this is a general view of English optional. And I'll just also talk about paper 1 and paper 2 separately. In paper 1, we have works from William Shakespeare to Thomas Hardy. There, with Shakespeare's work, what I did was I read, as I mentioned, I read the PYQs, I understood the major themes, and I read the primary text once. And I underlined the important points over there. Then I used to reread those highlighted portions and to try to think and come up with my own analysis whenever possible. And also used to make use of those quotes in order to support my arguments. And we know that Shakespeare is a well analyzed and well criticized dramatist, but actually, I avoided including many critical comments in my answers. I may use it here and there in order to support or add value to my answers, but I relied very less on critical comments because what I personally think and what one of my professors told me was that they are looking for your insights and your viewpoints and not the viewpoints of a critique or any other person. So that professor advised me it's better to bring in your ideas and here and there you can actually mention a critical comment if time permits and if you are remembering it. So with King Lear and Tempest also, though a lot of critical analysis were available, I relied less on critical comments and tried to come up with my own arguments or my ideas by rereading the text and not the entire text, actually the highlighted portions, and those portions were highlighted keeping in mind previous year questions. And with done, though I had a look at individual works, I then looked at his works in general. Like I tried to find some common themes or common subjects. So as we may know, and as UPSC has asked many times, love is a very important concept. Love and religion are very important when it comes to done. And I try to relate it with Jacobean era and how so many restrictions were placed on people during that era and how he Dunn might have intended how why he would have exalted love when people were so much concerned about puritanism or people were so much concerned about religion and all. So I considered Dunn's works altogether and used instances in order to justify, like I used instances from poems to justify my general viewpoints. And when it comes to Milton, again, what I gave importance was I couldn't actually, I'm saying that I couldn't read all the 4 parts in detail. So I went for a general summary and also I took some important lines from Spark Notes, lit charts, and all. And again with Alexander Pope, as we all know, Alexander Pope was a great critique of the snobbishness of that age. So for me, the Rape of the Lock was mainly a critique of that society. So again, I couldn't read that work entirely, but I read some relevant portions. For instance, her first initial prayer of that lady and how that fight went on. So such portions were read. And now coming to William Wordsworth, is a very important writer. And again, I tried to link Wordsworth with the quality of romantic writings or the characteristics of romantic writings. We know in giving importance to imagination, individual. So these ideas, I just saw how they were reflected in the works of Wordsworth, and also took some instances and quoted some lines from that. So while reading the poems, first of all, I'll highlight some lines, and then I used to reread, repeat, and by heart them for my benefit. And with Tennyson's In Memoriam, I must honestly say that I haven't read In Memoriam. That is the only work that I left in paper one because I found it to be very long. I read a few portions and just got a general idea that it is something that he wrote as an elegy, like that. I just got an elaborate idea. And then with Ibsen's Doll's House, again, I read, I followed something that is similar to The Tempest, like to Shakespeare's work. I read the text first with the previous year questions in mind. I highlighted a few portions. Then I just went through those highlighted portions again so that I can develop some organic thoughts of my own. And Gulliver's Travels, again, I read an abridged version, and basically it's about how Gulliver's Travels is like a satire on human beings. So I focused more on that aspect. And oh, sorry, I should make an amendment. I left two works from paper one, and the other one was Tom Jones by Henry Fielding. I didn't read the primary text, but I went through a detailed summary. And also, we know with Henry Fielding that Tom Jones is considered to be one of the first great novels. So I analyzed it from that point of view, like how Tom Jones qualified to be a good novel. And with Dickens and Hard Times, we know it is basically about industrialization, then the utilitarianism versus fancy. So I tried to relate some characters with each and every aspect of this work, and also I used to find some what similarity between what happened to those characters and what happened to an ideology and all. And then with Mark Twain also, again, the slavery was one of the main questions. Significance of Mississippi River was yet another important topic. And for Austen, Eliot, and Hardy, especially I consider Austen and Eliot together because they were women writing in an age which was very difficult for women to write. So I considered them as parallels, how both of them reflected that age, how they were similar, how they were different, and also had a look at them from the light of previous year questions. And with Hardy, I mainly
Yeah.
looked at Hardy's work. Yes. Hello. So, like, if you guys are running out of time, then I'll wind up with chess of doubles by now. So I just went through previous year questions and again took a few quotes from them so that I can justify my answers with that. And something that I would just like to talk is that with paper one, something that we'll often ignore is that there is one unseen poem, and usually we hardly practice that. So, okay, I'll continue. Okay, so I'll talk about this aspect of paper one. So yeah, we'll not think of that unseen poem, but that the poem that you will get in that exam hall will be will not be familiar to you. But again, try answering some unseen poem at least one in a week, so that you can see how you will be thinking, and after some point of time you will start thinking organically, even though you may not be familiar with what that poem exactly meant, or your interpretation will be different from popular interpretation, but you will get that knack of it. And something that I tried was, and something that other toppers told me was, like, it's not like GS papers for English literature, especially. It's not mandatory that we should fill all the pages. Phenomenon was that I couldn't finish the paper on time at first. So I kept the unseen poem for the last, because unseen poem is like a go no go situation also. Because if you are interpreting it in a very wrong sense, then sometimes it may not give you that much marks. So what I did was, we may get some cool off time before writing the answers. So during that time, I tried to select the questions that I wanted to write, and also I tried to crack that unseen poem, and also just go through the questions and to look at those areas that may be important. And while writing the answer, what I did was, I try to decode the area from which the question is asked as deep as possible within that short span of time. I used to spend around only 5 minutes for one 10-marker question when it comes to unseen poem. And then I try to quote as many images or as many examples from that poem as possible, so that it will be like I am talking with all the evidence from what I have. So this is something that I adopted for paper one in general. Then when it comes to paper two, let me ask you, like, do you want me to go writer by writer, or I'll just give a general overview, because it's already 7:40.
Ma'am, whatever is comfortable by you is fine.
I think writer by writer would be fine.
Okay, fine, fine. Then I'll
Arya,
go first, starting with yes. Yes.
I want to ask something. Can we have more sessions like this?
Yeah, we'll try, definitely try.
Okay, then we
Yeah,
can
like
cover maybe
first
five to
we'll,
six more books.
yes, we'll try, Aisha.
Okay, then please
Okay,
continue.
so talking about paper, yeah, talking about paper two, with yet again, I looked at it again with paper two. One thing I must say is that go through all the poems multiple times, because you will get annotations from that portion. So again, I looked at Yeats, like all the poems of Yeats in general, and took his individual poems, except for a few, like Easter 1916 and Sailing to Byzantium, The Tower, which were these poems were asked separately also. But except for them, I used to look at his works in general and uh, try to see how certain themes, like its Orientalism, was reflected in these works. And then Eliot, Eliot is related to modernism, and therefore I try to deconstruct how Eliot reflected the characteristics of modern poetry, and how these works reflected the modern age. And again with Auden, that sense of loss and uncertainty that's there after World War or during World War is reflected in the works of Auden. So, while giving an introduction to Auden, I just talked about the disillusionment of the age, and then talked about how that's reflected in the works of Auden, and tried to quote from that his works whenever possible. And with Sons and Lovers, we know the most important aspect is that of psychoanalysis. But then again, I tried to look into the idea of industrialization and its impact, because it's also set in a coal mine. And also, I I thought about how environment was affected, how environment was portrayed in the works of D.H. Lawrence. And with James Joyce, I read Portrait long back, so I couldn't reread that work during the course of my preparation. Therefore, I took the help of Spark Notes and Lit Charts. I went through a detailed summary, and again took the major themes and made notes on them. And with both these works, what that's important, as you may know, is the writing technique and how the mind of the character is reflected through these works, and also the symbols used. And with Look Back in Anger, it's one of my favorite works because I think it's also reflective of our age, when people who are qualified, when people who want to do something in their lives are unable to find useful avenues. And therefore I try to relate it with not just with the age of Osborne, but also with our present age. And Beckett's Waiting for Godot, there I read the drama. There is nothing much that we can actually quote from that, but took a few instances which can be used by me to quote. And also, I did a deeper character analysis of all the four characters, Lucky, Pozo, and all, so that I tried to draw some parallel how about the biblical illusions over there, biblical references that's there in Waiting for Godot, based on previous questions itself. Then with Larkin, again, I looked at them as a big chunk, how it reflected Larkin's animism or how it reflected Larkin's pessimism. And I took individual works as examples. Then Lord Jim, as you may know, what's that special about Lord Jim is its writing style. So I tried to take as many instances from Lord Jim as possible in order to prove how that writing style that was introduced by Conrad in Lord Jim was different from the works of that age. And with Passage to India, the most important aspect of it is the impact of colonialism. There, I actually made use of, when it comes to Passage to India and Kantapura, I used some ideas of post-colonialism by writers like Franz Fanon and Edward Said that you might have heard of. So I used some of their idea. I didn't go in detail into any of their criticism or anything like that, but I used some of their ideas of post-colonialism and applied it in the works of E.M. Foster and Raja Rao. And with A.K. Ramanujan, what I mainly focused was the Indianism of his writings, and based on previous questions, how there is a sense of Indianism and universalism that's there in the works of Ramanujan. And with V.S. Naipaul, the focus was on diaspora, their lives, and the importance of house, what the house meant for Mr. Biswas and all. So here also, while writing answers, what I did was I kept annotations for last. Again, I am just giving a warning that this is my own, this is what that worked for me. It may work differently for you, but when I tried to write full length test, just before my original mains, I wrote two complete optional tests. I took previous year questions of 2020 and 2021, and I tried to write in an exam like environment. There, during my first try, I couldn't complete the paper, but during my second try, what I did was in paper one, I kept the unseen poem for the last half an hour or so. I'm not remembering the time duration correctly. And here the annotations for the last lap. And I utilized the cool off time for both the papers. In paper 2, I used that time, that 10 minutes that we'll get before writing answers, to just to decode what poem, like which poem will contain these lines and what is that portion talking about. Because as you may know, if we are reading these lines in a frenzy, we may get confused, we may go wrong. But it is also like a go no go situation with annotations. Like if you are getting the annotation correctly, then you will get marks. If you are not getting them properly, you may not get good marks. So I use that cool off time of 10 minutes to just to mark like from which poem is that those lines taken from and what is the context of it. And with annotations, I did a detailed and I deconstructed the given lines. I went as deep into those lines. I didn't write the summary of any of the poems when it comes to annotation. I just talked about all the references, all the images that's there in those lines that were given. So this is my general summary or general overview, and hope it would have been of some use. I have bored you for sure, but if you have any questions, please ask me.
Ma'am, my first question will be, was there any question regarding English optional in your interview?
Actually, no. I prepared a little bit for the interview. I just went through the history, general history of English, and about my favorite writer, favorite work, and all. But they didn't ask me any question. But they can ask you questions like about the technical details, like what is the difference between a novel and a fable, or what is the difference between a poem and sonnet. These are basic, but they can ask questions based on that. And they may ask who is your favorite poet, or who is your favorite dramatist, how, why, things like that.
Ma'am, for unseen poems, like you told, we will get poems from anywhere, like from internet. But the questions about that poem, like UPSC asks, can you name some sources for that to practice?
Actually, I use previous year questions only because that's the only reliable source that I had.
Okay. And any special advice for non students, I mean, don't belong to this English literature arena?
Yes, something. One, you can go through the blog of Anjali ma'am. I think it's shared in that group too. She has told in detail. Like, see, one thing I'll say that there is no much difference between an English postgraduate or graduate and people coming from other areas, because what they are looking into is a person who has read those primary texts and come up with original ideas. So try to read that original text, come up with your ideas, and also have a general understanding of English literature. Like you know that metaphysical poets, why they came out and how they were different from others. So have a general idea about the trends in English literature and read the primary text and develop your own analysis. That will take you to many places.
About Anjali, yes, ma'am. Yes, I have read her blog. Actually, she had a very keen interest in reading. As she has told, she had covered. I mean, from her school days, she used to read a lot, like novels, fictions, non-fictions. So she had a reading habit, which helped her a lot.
Hmm.
Uh, so my question is, ma'am, actually, I
But
okay, ma'am.
yeah, tell me. Please complete the question.
Yeah, my question is like, yes, ma'am. I'm a working person, so I will not get enough time to get the unabridged to read the original and unabridged version of like novels and all. So, although the slit charts and spark notes will help me a lot, uh, will there any is there any other sources from where I'll get the technical? I will able to get the technicality of the novels without reading the actual the original text.
Okay, I think if you know somebody who's preparing for net, I forgot the channel's name actually. They used to provide detailed analysis of famous works, at least, like the portrait of an artist as a young man or Mrs. Dalloway as audio notes. So when I was preparing, I had written net JRF exam. So when I was preparing for that, I used to hear those audio notes, which had a deeper analysis of these works while traveling and all. So if you have somebody who's preparing, if you know somebody who's preparing for net, you can seek that person's help, and I'll also myself will try to get that. If I get that,
Okay,
I'll
ma'am.
share it in that group. Okay.
Okay, ma'am. Thank you so much.
Okay. I'll just address one question by Vijay Lakshmi. Note making. Okay, how to make notes? See, as I've said, first of all, please go through last 10 years of questions, and you will be able to see that certain questions or certain areas are repeated for each and every text. So uh, just note those areas and read the primary text, keeping in mind those areas. And also, while preparing notes, you can rely on popular sites like LitCharts, uh, not Cliff Notes, Spark Notes, and all. And you just type the question, or for example, let it be the question of pessimism in Larkin. So just type pessimism in Larkin analysis. You will get so many articles based on that. And then take those analysis and try to substantiate with some examples that's there in the poems. So you can take each and every important topic or repeated area, and using internet and also using your own analysis, you can prepare a note that is 1.5, 2 or 3 page long. Is
Okay,
there any?
yeah, I have just like two clarifications and one question. Firstly,
Hmm.
like I think it would be
I
all
was
right
going through
if
your
do like wait. It would be all right, right? Like if we haven't read any text recently, like it's not a very big deal if we have a basic idea about it, right?
Yes, yes. We just want to know the essence of those texts.
Yeah.
What
Okay. Secondly,
what is the essence? Yeah.
yeah. Secondly, if we do read any critical essay, then like 1 2 points from that essay and something to back it from the text. That should be sufficient, right? Because we
Yes,
won't have
that's
the space to
sufficient.
write
And there
any
is
way
no, I
any
don't
more than
think
that.
there is. Yeah, I don't think there's much of a need to mug critical comments. Like you can
Okay.
mug up some quotes and you can mug up some lines from poems, but there is no need to mug up critical comments as far as my understanding is concerned.
Okay. And lastly, what do you think would hold more weightage, like going through the text or answer writing more in these last 3 months that we have?
Answer writing, I would say. But before
This is
writing
primary.
answers, yes,
Hmm.
answer writing is very important. But before writing answers, like you, whatever little you have prepared, try to revise that and then write.
Yeah.
And this is
Okay.
also something that Anjali ma'am, a previous topper, advised me that while writing answers, don't hesitate to quote. Like while writing, you may find it a little bit, you may find yourself a little bit hesitant to do that. You may think that you are not writing the exact quote, but try to do
Yeah.
that so that you will correct yourself then and there. So the next time when you write an answer or something similar, you will make that correct.
Okay. Thank you so much, ma'am. Congratulations.
Thank you.
ma'am. Can you
Congratulations, ma'am.
Thank you,
Uh,
Dhani.
Ma'am, so I had a small doubt about what was the word and time limit for 10, 15, and 20 markers?
Okay, for a 10 minute, sorry, a 10 marker, the same as our GS answers. I used to spend around 7 minutes for a 10 marker question. But as I mentioned, for unseen poems and annotations, though they had 10 marks each, see, this is something that I worked on. I used to spend only 5 minutes and I used to keep them for the last. But just practice yourself, practice some questions and see how you will be able to do. And for the 15 marker, again, you will get around 10 minutes. The word limit is same as that of 15 marker for a GS question. And for 20 mark question, you will get around 4 pages to write. And there you can spend around 12 to 15 minutes. And I think spending 12 minutes and writing only 3.5 pages will also will not be of any harm.
Okay. And ma'am, I wanted to know like how in first paper there is more importance to the facts of the authors, like which era they came from. Like for example, what was the first
Fanny, I'm unable to hear you. Can you please repeat the question? Hello?
Yes, ma'am, you are very
Mm,
much audible. Ma'am, actually, I
okay.
also have a query. Ma'am, my query is that, ma'am, actually, I have not started my preparation of English literature optional. So my concern is that, ma'am, as you know that there are study material is not there for a proper institute from a coaching center, right? So would you like to recommend anything to me so that I can start my preparation of optional subject?
Um, okay. I actually do not have like one book as such. As I told you, just we can work on 4 to 5 themes. And for English history in general, like we don't want to go very deep into the profile of each and every writer or all the details of one particular age and all, but having a general overview of English history will help. I actually followed History of English Language and Literature by Radha Kumari, which is a textbook that is prepared for Kerala, that is referred by Kerala University students. So you can go to some basic history text that's available in your place and just have an idea about English literature and its trends as such. And then like as I mentioned, you can take 4 to 5 themes based on previous year questions and then make notes on that. And as somebody requested, I have not gone to my hostel in order to take my things back. And once I get hold of them, and if my time permits, I'll at least try to group the major themes that I have noted down for various papers. And when it comes to my notes, they are very messy. That's why I am unable to like share it with anybody. But I'll try to fetch as many materials as possible, and I'll share it in the group, like in the due course of next month, like in the due course of
Ma'am,
coming one
yeah.
month.
Ma'am, and in which means in how what will be the duration of preparing for this optional as a subject? Means in which in how many months can we just prepare? And suppose
Uh,
if we'll
I think if you are preparing consistently, it will take 3 to 4 months. But again, you should spend, I think, around 2 to 3 hours, if possible, for reading the primary text also. Because with poems, you can read the poem then and there and do the analysis along with making notes. But with optional, you can read the poem once, and then you can Am I audible?
ma'am, suppose yeah, suppose my last question is that suppose if I have to write this mains of this 23, right? So that will I be able to prepare? Means if I do only the important topics, so will it be okay? Or do I have to study in depth? Because other subjects are also here, so I have to look upon that
Okay.
also.
In this short span of time, I think the best that you can do is to go through those priority areas and study. Like take important topics and study, and just go as deep that's possible for you. And I think another important thing is one, yes, you should spend some considerable time, say 2 to 3 hours on English literature, or 3 or 4 hours maybe every day, especially between your prelims and mains. But don't spend more than that. Like I have seen people who used to spend 5 hours, 6 hours for optional. I don't know about other optionals, but when it comes to English literature, I think you can leisurely spend 3 hours, 4 hours for English literature, and also concentrate on your GS papers, because we with English literature, English optional background can also have some upper hand in essay and ethics papers. So try to make
Yeah.
use of that.
Okay, ma'am. And ma'am, is there any specific coaching center notes if it is available? So can you suggest that also?
Um,
Just like
Actually, I made use of my own notes and I'm not aware of any. Otherwise, I would have helped you. I think I have detailed summary of a few novels. I'll try to track back its source, and if possible, I'll let you know.
okay, thank you, ma'am.
I'll
Thanks a
do
lot.
that within 3 days or 4 days. I just want to go to my hostel and fetch things.
Good evening, ma'am. Congratulations for the results. Ma'am, I just had one question, 1 to 2 questions. So, is it advisable at your end to prepare the introductions and conclusions beforehand?
Okay, Shubhansi, it will depend on what kind of person you are. Like some people can work well with a template. Like if you are prepared things beforehand, but some people can work well with it's always advisable to think of possible ways in which you can introduce a question. Like, as I said, most of the themes that will be asked in the original exam are presentable. So you can think about what quote can be used as an intro and what quote can be used as a conclusion and all. But always make sure that you are improving your intros and conclusion according to the question, because the intro hello.
Yes, ma'am, your voice was breaking in between.
And yeah, you got hello.
Yes, ma'am, your voice
Yeah,
was breaking in between. Now it's
yeah,
clear.
I got a call. That's why. So what I said was like your intro should be relevant. That's one thing. So if you can make template intros, but try to improve them or try to modify them according to the question, because the invigilator should not, sorry, the evaluator should not feel that this is a template answer.
Okay, ma'am. And ma'am, thank you, ma'am, for that. And the second question is that what would be the, like what how would you rate the importance of quoting things from the text versus quoting the critics? And when we are quoting the things, do the quotes they need to be full liners, or if we are just able to remember small phrases like two, three
Oh,
words, would that
yeah.
be enough?
I will always suggest quoting from the text rather than quoting critics. Because, see, that is something my professor told that they are looking for your ideas, not the ideas of another person. So you may use one or two quotes in the whole course of a paper, but it's better to come up with your own ideas. And yes, it's not necessary that you should quote something exactly. If you are quoting exactly, you can enclose it within double quotes. For others, you can enclose it within single quotes if you're just vaguely remembering it. But it's fine because the evaluator, that person themselves will know that you are not somebody, you are not a robot to remember everything exactly. So you can just enclose things that you remember exactly within double quotes. Others you can enclose within single quotes.
Okay, ma'am. Thanks a lot.
Ma'am,
Okay.
how
Hello.
does vocabulary matters? Like, can we use simple everyday language, like simple words, or we need to use some florical words, which will be technically sounding, better?
Okay, if you just go through my answers, you will see that I used everyday words, like
Yes, ma'am.
not
That's
like
why.
yeah, I think, see, the flowery and sophisticated language will make the work a little bit difficult for the evaluator too. And that can also hamper the flow of your answer. See, they are not
Yes,
looking for
ma'am.
an English language expert. They are looking for a person who has gone through these words and come up with their ideas. So I think they are looking for ideas. And language, I think, yes, they may prefer, as it's English optional, they may prefer a language that has a very good flow and that is intelligible. But it is better if you can write in a language that is free of grammatical errors. But it's fine even if you are having a few. Just try working on them. But first of all, what that matters is the ideas that you are trying to convey.
Okay, ma'am. Ma'am, the
Good evening,
arguments,
ma'am.
like some questions, in some questions, can we put, can we compare to writers to works which are not included in the syllabus?
I think that's not so advisable because I am someone who did that. I did mention about other writers and other works. But some people discourage me basically because, see, they are intending this as a paper that is for people who are also not from English background. So it is advisable for you to talk about the things from on the light of whatever that is mentioned in the syllabus. You can use that here or there, but not rely too much on comparisons and analogies.
And can you, ma'am, give some insights like how the arguments, how you will know that you're putting the right argument on the paper?
See, when I can come up with an organic, like when all the points that I'm thinking about or that I'm trying to write about are correlating with each other. That means they are not contradicting with each other. Even though they are contradicting the popular perception, I think that is how I'll consider my arguments to be valid.
No, no. Can you, ma'am, show the two sides? Two sides. Sometimes, like it will be, you can go against and for in the same question.
Mm.
Can you put two contradicting, not exactly contradicting, but two different sides of the argument, two different arguments which are completely, opposite, showing the different sides of the author or showing different sides of our thinking and imagination.
Yes, we can, but it's always better to also make sure that you are expressing which point of view you are supporting. Like you can talk about the other side and come up with a few arguments on that side, but strongly make sure, make sure that you are also conveying what you think, what your viewpoint is. Either you are for the argument or against the argument, and why. So your side or your argument should be given prominence. You can talk about the other argument also.
And ma'am, the arguments, can the arguments be extreme or they should be balancing like politically?
Um, okay. I think it is better to be balanced, but I'm someone who also went with extreme arguments, but your extreme arguments require extreme validation. For example, I am someone who told that Dole's House is not a feminist text, but it is a humanist text because I could never see, like, I could see Nora advocating for her rights, but she's not talking about the equality of sexes in general. So my argument was kind of extreme, but I tried to back it up with as many examples as possible.
Yes, because sometimes
Okay.
I feel like in
Uh,
some works
uh,
we need to critically comment. We need to critically roast the some of the writers or some of the novelists. So will that be acceptable by the evaluator, or it will be taken in a wrong way? If
I I think yes, because from the marks I could get, I think they are very open people. Like they are open to new ideas, unlike many other evaluations that you might hear of. I went with some extreme and some not so popular arguments in my original answer too, but I could fetch marks. So I think they are open to our original and new ideas, as long as we can justify it.
okay, ma'am. Thank you so
Okay,
much.
I'll, if you guys don't mind, actually, I'm having some guests at my home. So I'll take up one more question and we'll sit for another day with, we shall analyze answers if possible. So I'll take up one more question and I should leave actually.
Yes, ma'am. Can I ask my question?
Yeah.
First of all, congratulations to you. I'm a Aquarian fan of your number which you have secured in English literature. I have a question that how to pace our answer writing when we don't have any good guidelines, materials, and the answer evaluation. The few are there, but I have a doubt that I'm writing an answer and I'm giving to the same answer to two evaluators or mentors, and both are giving us different feedback. So how to cope up with that, and how to pace our answer writing initiatives and think that we are in the right direction or right path.
Okay. First of all, just use your rationality. Like you, even though you may give it to two evaluators, as literature, it's very subjective. But just go with that answer writing style that you think that is comfortable or that is working for you or that will help you to convey your ideas very effectively. And how you will know that, actually I don't have a very great strategy to explain that, but if you are able to satisfactorily back something in an answer, you will get to know by seeing the strength of your arguments or how one argument is evolving after the another. So I think it will take some time to explain that, but this is it. Just go with whatever that you think is right and that you can substantiate.
Okay, ma'am.
Okay.
Thank you. While saying the time, just you are running short of time, so we can schedule. I'm
Yes.
requesting you. You can schedule that another meeting if you are
Thing,
getting time.
and I'm not able to
Yes. Yes.
analyze the question, and I'm not able
I'm
to
actually.
analyze.
Yes. Tell me, Kushi.
I'm not able to analyze whether I'm improving with my question and answer writing skills. So I just stuck in the question and I don't get how to
analyze my answers effectively, just like an evaluator.
Okay. See, if you have any friends of yours preparing for the same, you can ask their help to do that. Or else, what you can try doing is try writing repeating the same question again and again. Like, take a question, try answering that, and then after 1 day or 2 day, try to answer that once again, and then compare the answers. I think that is something that you can do right now.
Thank you, ma'am, and congratulations.
Okay. Thank you, thank you. I'm so sorry, but I should leave right now. If you guys don't mind, I wish you all the best, and I really hope we can arrange more sessions like this. So that's it. Thank you. Thanks a lot.
Thank you, Arya. Thank you so much.
Thank you so much, Arya.
Thank you. All the best to all of you. Thank you.